To our top story this morning, and violence has erupted across Belfast overnight after protests over a horrific knife attack descended into disorder, with homes, vehicles and businesses set alight.
Well, the unrest followed the charging of a Sudanese asylum seeker with attempted murder after a man was left with serious injuries in Monday's attack.
As politicians condemn what they've been described as thuggery, questions are now being asked about immigration, community tensions and how the city reached this boiling point.
Well, Reform UK leader Nigel Farage says the suspect should never have been in Britain.
Happened last night on the streets of Belfast. Barbaric, horrific in every way. We know that the man was of Sudanese origin. Number 10 are point blank refusing to say whether he came here legally or illegally. All that we know is that he was given leave to remain. Well, I'm sorry, but we're giving out that sort of status. We're dishing it out like Smarties to people we haven't properly checked. And I very much doubt whether this man should have been in Britain at all.
In the meantime, let's get this report from GB News national reporter Charlie Peters, who's in Belfast for us.
Well, this scene is like many others tonight in North Belfast. Roads cut off with flames, waiting for the emergency services that are too stretched to deal with situations like this to come and extinguish those flames. There are so many roundabouts, crossings and roads that are covered with these sorts of flames. There you go, fire and rescue just going straight past this fire because they are too stretched tonight amid rioting and disorder throughout Belfast and indeed the wider province of Northern Ireland in reaction to that horrific violence in North Belfast last night. Now, a 30-year-old Sudanese national will be appearing at Belfast Magistrates Court today, but there will still be grave reaction ongoing throughout the city to what has happened here in Belfast. That reaction has been aided by the rain tonight, very much the policeman's best friend, getting people off the streets. But we have seen people being rescued from their homes in East Belfast tonight, in the Newtonards Road area. People having their properties set on fire. The extraordinary scene to arrive on a British street in the United Kingdom, seeing properties set on fire while people quickly run to put their luggage and their possessions in the back of a car to drive away. It might be the sort of scene you expect to see in a war-torn country far away from the United Kingdom, but that is what GB News has witnessed in Belfast over the last night. Families fleeing from their areas as people react with violence to the anger, the frustration and the sheer misery of what they witnessed in North Belfast. That 30-year-old Sudanese man will appear at court on a range of charges, and there will now be attention turning to the wider community here. Will the anger they feel die down as the progress in the criminal justice system takes place?
We're now joined by GB News national reporter Charlie Peters, who's in Belfast for us. Morning, Charlie.
Morning, Ellie. Yes, last night we heard from the First Minister, Michelle O'Neill, condemning that thuggery and the cowardice, the outright cowardice that she condemned for families being forced out of their homes as a consequence to the violence here last night. And this is the scene the morning after. You can see burnt out cars here, family homes that have been gutted due to the flames that erupted here after those masked groups arrived on the street. This is Lendrick Street, just in the east of Belfast, just off the Newtonards Road. It's where we were last night. Just a little bit of insight into the extent of the damage here. These homes have been totally gutted by the flames. And we were on this road last night from about 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. And as we saw these buildings being set on fire, we were unable to walk down the street towards this location as men approached us and expressed in no uncertain terms to the GB News crew that we were not welcome. They did not want the press in the area as they engaged with this level of extreme violence. We can still hear the chirping of fire alarms and smoke alarms at some of the buildings around us as the recovery continues. There's no sight of the emergency services this morning. There wasn't much sight of them last night even. They were so stretched. We've just come across the road with me here. You can still see another sort of burnt out car a bit further down the road. This next building here also a vast level of destruction. You see the window has been smashed in as well. It's quite an extraordinary scene. And as we moved away from this scene last night, we were approached by some more men who said, "Get away," pushed us further down the road, and they then approached us again and said we were not welcome. That was actually interrupted by the leader of the Ulster Unionist Party, John Burrows. Quite an extraordinary interaction. He just appeared out of his car and stood between us and a man who approached very closely with a mask and started shouting at us, acting in a threatening manner towards us. But that's nothing in comparison to the threatening experience that the families on this street experienced last night. No doubt in the minds of some of the locals we've spoken to this morning and yesterday why this has happened. This is anger at migrant communities. Of course, no evidence whatsoever that the people here were related in any way to disorder or the extreme violence that we saw 2 nights ago, in which a 30-year-old Sudanese man, an asylum seeker, has been charged. And it has been described as thuggery and cowardice for that reason. These are families, as far as we're aware, of no link whatsoever to what happened here in North Belfast 2 nights ago. But this vision you're seeing here, these extraordinary scenes of burnt-out houses and cars, this was repeated on a smaller scale throughout the city. Everywhere we went last night, we saw fires in the streets, wheelie bins set ablaze, bins, people pushing out violence, throwing cones at police cars. Wherever we went, we quickly encountered this level of disorder.
And Charlie, the thing is now, looking at those images of the aftermath of this disorder, that's what Michelle O'Neill, the First Minister, and other politicians, many other politicians, are going to talk about now. Condemnation of the violence rather than the real issues that so many people across both Northern Ireland and the Republic are so very concerned about.
Yes, quite right, Mark. And so many people we spoke to yesterday who are watching on as this violence erupted throughout the city, not wearing masks, happy to come and speak to the press, were telling us this is distracting from the concerns we have. This is preventing a proper debate. This is preventing proper discussion. Now, all the focus, as you say, is on this level of violence, intimidation and thuggery. This has moved the conversation away, quite helpfully perhaps, for some people who are distressed when the issue of that border between Ireland, the Republic and Northern Ireland comes up, who aren't really ready perhaps to process the concerns that this country has with regards to asylum seekers and extreme violence, and perhaps some of the difficult conversations that need to be had throughout the United Kingdom, not just here in the province. But those conversations will be delayed and they'll be affected by what we saw here last night, of course. And I just want to say, it's no surprise that will happen, because the scenes that we witnessed here are quite unbelievable. We all saw the riots, of course, 2 years ago in 2024, but there was something else to what we saw last night. Perhaps it's what you might expect in Northern Ireland, considering how organised disorder can be here. But we saw families just maybe 200 metres in that direction back towards the Newtonards Road last night, packing their belongings rapidly into a car and driving away, getting out of this area because they feared they might be next in a mindless sweep of arson attacks. I mean, the police service of Northern Ireland will no doubt be investigating widely as to who was involved here last night. We did see observation, surveillance craft, an airplane circling this location last night, but we didn't see much police involvement because they knew this area was inaccessible for them. What happens next, we'll wait and see.
OK, Charlie Peters there for us in Belfast. Thank you very much indeed.
Well, we're now joined by GB News national reporter Charlie Peters, who is live in Belfast for us.
And Mark, did you see that young lady walking down the road there with her suitcase? She came to Belfast from Kyiv in 2023, having fled the war in Ukraine after Russia's invasion. She came to the United Kingdom with her family because she thought it would be safe. But this morning, she is moving what's left of her belongings after her house was destroyed and severely damaged by the disorder last night. A Ukrainian family, you can see a family member just dealing with the front door on the floor there, and the building next door even more severely damaged just to our right. The widespread damage taking place here. A Ukrainian family on the move now because of the disorder they endured. That is the scene that we're witnessing today. It's been condemned as thuggery and cowardice. It's extreme violence that's been sparked by the severe incident that took place 2 nights ago.
OK, Charlie Peters, thank you very much for bringing us that update. We'll speak to you again in about 30 minutes' time. Thank you. In the meantime, let's cross now to Shadow Northern Ireland Secretary Alex Burghart. Very good morning to you, Mr Burghart. What's your reaction to the scenes of disorder last night in Belfast?
It's extremely depressing. And there's watching people have their houses burnt, watching public property be destroyed. It's something that's not going to make anything better. And I very much hope that that this is an end to it, and that cooler heads prevail tonight.
And politicians will be pointing the finger at those involved in the violence. But do you think that politicians need to take their share of the blame here? People in communities across this country have been crying out for years about the increasing tensions caused by mass migration, illegal immigration.
People are absolutely right to have concerns about mass immigration. People are absolutely right to be able to go and protest about those things. But there is an enormous difference between protest and violence. And what we saw last night was violence. Look, we have to make sure that people in Northern Ireland have a much greater, like people across the rest of the United Kingdom, have a much greater say over immigration, and that they can be confident that there is going to be far less illegal immigration. It appears that the man in question, the man who committed that awful attack night before last, had, and I'm just basing what I'm about to say on what the police in Northern Ireland said yesterday, had come from Sudan to Dublin and then taken a coach into Northern Ireland. He was in our country illegally. He should not have been here. He should have been deported. Under the plan that my party has now put forward, that's what would happen in future. But I completely understand why people are angry about this. But as I say, I have to appeal to anybody watching: do not get involved in violent protests. Do not burn people out of their homes. Do not set fire to public property. It will not make any situation better.
Do we need to look at the border between Northern Ireland and the Republic and potentially have a review of border security measures? Because the way things stand, no passport checks are conducted on that border, and there are people who exploit that system, and it's being described in the papers this morning as a backdoor to Britain.
Yeah, it's clear that there are some people exploiting this, and I go to Northern Ireland a lot for my job. It's a huge border. It goes through areas of a very open countryside. During the Troubles, it was extremely difficult to police, for British forces to police. It's a very difficult border. However, the Irish government has, over the past few years, been conducting something called Operation Sonnet, where we're using some intelligence that they get from the United Kingdom. They perform spot checks on some people who are not Irish, not British, crossing that border in order to prevent illegal immigration into their country. I see no good reason why we can't have something similar on our side of the border in order to be able to give people in our country that additional security.